we start. So we switch to English. So hello everyone, and welcome to another meeting of our Excel Community Club. My name is Saldak, and I founded this club 5 years ago, before the COVID-19 pandemic. And after the pandemic, now we do these meetings only on Zoom. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce Heather, a Microsoft MVP, an expert in many fields. And Heather, you may present yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and share my screen out with all of you, and then I'll introduce myself. So give me just one moment. I'm so familiar with Teams, I have to reacquaint myself with Zoom here now.
I don't like Teams.
All
At least
right.
I'll monitor the chat. If there's someone who's asking about the chat, I'll answer him.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody for joining me here today. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. You should be able to see my screen clearly, and I'm hoping you can hear me clearly as well. We're going to start with just a little bit of an intro, and then I'll dive right into some demo of the topics that I wanted to share with you all today. So if I haven't had a chance to meet you virtually or in person before, I'm Heather Severino, as Israel said, and I'm coming to you from the United States. I'm in the Central Florida area. So if you're familiar with Disney, Walt Disney, I'm not too far from that area, and I'm glad to be here with you today. My knowledge, as Israel was saying, is I kind of dabble in everything, or like to explore and learn about everything that has to do with Microsoft 365. And so I thought that it would be fun for us to talk about not only Microsoft Excel, but some other things that can tie into Excel, which are the Microsoft Forms app, and then also Power Automate with creating flows for that as well. So here's my contact information. If there's anything that you want to follow up as far as questions, or if you're looking for other resources to be able to learn more about what I'm talking about today, happy to share that with you. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or on X. You can also reach out to me by email. And as we're going through this, I first wanted to kind of help you explore Copilot. And so I wanted to find out, and let me see if I can see, and I'm going to turn my camera off too so that you can, let's see if I can get Zoom to cooperate here with me. All right, I'm going to turn my camera off real quick here, and maybe I can. You go to the top here. Let me go to the toolbar and do that way. So you can just focus on the content. In the chat, though, I do want to have this open so that I can monitor for any questions and also get some instant feedback. So where's Copilot available? And have you tried Copilot out yet? So let me know in the chat. You're also welcome to unmute yourself if you're able to do that, and let me know your thoughts on this. If you used Copilot in Microsoft 365, there's several different Copilots. I'm seeing some yeses. And if you have, which apps have you explored Copilot with in Microsoft 365? Before I tell you all of the ones where it's available, I'd love to hear it from you first. So I'm seeing Word, Excel, of course, Excel, right? I'm sure some of you have tried it out there. Okay, thanks for playing along with me on that one. Where it's available for you, your company won't allow, well, hopefully someday you'll be able to be able to try it out. You also could try it out working with the browser, and I'll show you some ways that you can still interact with Copilot, and maybe not with your organizational, your company data. Power Ups, thanks for sharing that one with you too. So Outlook, if we want to help compose emails or rewrite emails, maybe summarize all the emails that have to do with this topic, or everything in a long conversation thread. In Microsoft Word, one of you mentioned that. We can have Word help us with creating content, summarizing content, rewriting content, answering specific questions about that. In Microsoft Excel, which is what we're going to take a look at today, lots of things you can do with that. PowerPoint, you may not know this, but you can take content and turn it into a PowerPoint presentation. So you can take a Word document or a portable document, a PDF, and turn that into a presentation in PowerPoint. And if you love OneNote like I do, Israel and I were talking about how much he loves Excel, and I do too. I'm a big OneNoter. Loop has come along, and I'm kind of trying to get in with that as well, but you can work with Copilot in OneNote to help you with your notes as well. In Teams. So all of the things that I'm going to show you today, pretty much you could do in Teams. And there's an app directly built into that too. And if we have a couple minutes at the end, I can show you how you can set that up. Microsoft Loop, which is the new workspace and those portable content components that carry across many of your apps and the places that you're communicating. You can work with it directly in OneDrive now. So if you needed to ask some questions about or do something with your Excel workbook, you don't necessarily need to open it. You might be able to do that directly in OneDrive, also where the file is living. And in SharePoint. So if you've got documents or files in there as well, you can interact with Copilot with your SharePoint files. In Microsoft Forms, which you're going to explore today, will show you how Copilot can help you with creating a form and then also with making a communication for it, as well as some other great features that are included with that as well. In Microsoft Whiteboard, if you've not explored Whiteboard yet, you may have if you've ever worked with one of those Surface Hubs. That's the technology that is behind Whiteboard. But this app, you can even work with Copilot there to help you build content on a whiteboard, to help you summarize that content, to help you create a loop component from that content that kind of becomes the notes of everything that everyone was doing within that whiteboard. And then Planner. And Planner is kind of a good one for us to talk about too, because it does tie into Excel. You can export a plan, a shared plan, all of those buckets and tasks that you have in a plan, you can export to Excel and then be able to do some analysis of that data with Copilot in Excel. But Copilot's also built into Planner. It's not included, though, with the Microsoft 365 Copilot license. So everything else that I've been talking about so far is. Planner is a separate license, as I've indicated here, if that's something that you're wanting to explore on how you can create your plans and maybe create and manage your tasks in a shared plan or a board with that. And then something newer to Microsoft is Clipchamp, and this is a video content creator and editor, and Copilot is available for you to work with there. So that's part of Microsoft 365 as well. And then Viva. If any of you work with Viva, there's several different types of Viva, whether we're talking about Viva Goals or, it used to be Yammer. There's all sorts of different parts of Viva. Copilot's available to work with there as well.
Heather, can you elaborate a sentence
Sure.
or can you elaborate a sentence or more about Viva? Because I didn't hear about it until
about Viva?
Yes.
Yeah, so Yammer is become the new name of it is Viva, but there's several different Vivas. So there's Viva Goals if you're wanting to work with your organizational goals. Excuse me, as far as like maybe what goals you have for the business unit, and then what's driving that for the organization as a whole. And then there's other Viva applications that kind of tie into the Viva suite. I don't work so much on that, Israel, to be able to expand too much on it, but I can definitely provide some resources that would help everyone for sure. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch on over and into our demo environment. I always like to ask a little trivia question of you as well. So let's see if you know this one. What was the working title for Microsoft Excel as it was being developed before it was officially announced and launched? Does anybody know what the working title was for Excel?
No idea.
No idea? From what I've researched, it was called Odyssey. There was a previous product to Excel that was called something different, but the actual working title of it was Odyssey. I always like to know, like, what are the names and then how did they get to Excel? And the other thing that I came up with this was that it was to emphasize that the software excelled at handling whatever it is that you're doing, or that it was excellent at handling what you're analyzing with your data, your formulas, whatever it might be. All right, so I know some of you have explored Copilot in Excel and others may not have done that, since your responses there in the chat were helping me with that. We are going to start here in what is commonly referred to as the desktop application, so the installed application that's part of Microsoft 365. If you have Copilot, and just a little bit of background on what will work with Copilot, is you will need to have a Microsoft 365 license, whether that's a business license. There are a couple of them that are qualifying for that. And then Copilot is an add-on license or an add-on to the plan for your licensing that's part of Microsoft 365. So if this is available to you through the account that you're logged into Excel with, it'll show up here on the home ribbon for you. And we're going to start first by creating some content with Excel, because I think that a lot of folks look at this as, okay, I've got this huge workbook, all of these thousands of cells of data, and I need to ask a particular question about it. And how can I do some analyses or get some formatting or create a formula for what I'm trying to accomplish, or create a pivot table, whatever it may be. But I think a lot of people don't realize that it's great for creating content. And this could be that you want it to help you with an overall structure of how you want to lay out the content on your worksheet, or it could be that you're learning something or you want to provide something for other people to be able to learn in. You're training someone new at work maybe, and you want to have some fictitious data that they can work with so that they don't mess up the real data that they are going to end up working with later. So I want to show you how this can be helpful to you for that. And I'm just starting in this blank workbook, and we're going to go on over to Copilot. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on my autosave. So if your autosave up here is off, some organizations that's off by default, you will need to save this before Copilot will work for you. So let's go ahead and save that. And we'll give it just a moment here. Let's see if it's, looks like it may not like what I'm doing here. So what we might do is we'll go to an existing workbook. All right, we're going to switch over to the web for now. And we'll come back later to our desktop app because it looks like it's not, even though I'm logged in, it's not cooperating properly. So let's flip on over here and we're going to start over here in the web. So let's go on into an existing workbook on a new worksheet as if we need to create something new. And you'll notice on the home ribbon, Copilot's going to be located in the same place. Another little shortcut that I like about Copilot when you're working in the web is if you right click, it's also located in the right click menu. I haven't seen it in the desktop app. I'm hoping that this will be something that we'll get sometime soon, but it is a great little shortcut for you to get to Copilot either way. And then we're going to ask it to create something here for us. Now, this is a rather lengthy prompt. And if you've not worked with Copilot yet, a prompt is just an instruction or a question like you might ask to me or you might ask to Israel. You can ask Copilot the same thing. So we're asking Excel to create some sample data for us that I could use during a training workshop to practice using Copilot. And here's the specifics. I'm telling it what I want it to include. I don't even have to be this detailed of saying what I want in column A and column B and column C. It would set it up pretty much like this if I just said include columns for salesperson, location, region, product, category, whatever it is. So you can see the structure of how well I am detailing what I want it to include. You're going to get better results the more detailed that you are with this for anything that you're asking Copilot to do. And I'm going to send it on its way. And what we should get in this worksheet here momentarily is what Copilot is going to suggest that it can set up for us. So notice what's happening over here in the chat pane. Copilot did some analysis based on this original prompt with it's in the green background. Here's the response. It's showing me a sample of this data. Here's the structure, a preview of the structure of what it will look like. It's also giving me some tips on how I can fill in the total. And I love this. Even if Excel cannot, or excuse me, even if Copilot cannot perform the action that you're asking it to do, whether that's creating a forecast sheet or whether that is coming up with some scenarios, it will at least respond back and walk you through the process of how you can do that. So this is almost like a built-in help for you as well. So if I wanted to use this sum function, I can copy that to my clipboard. This could be something more complex. It's a really complex nested formula or function or whatever we're working with. You could copy that and then go paste it in based on the instructions that are included. This is giving me a way though to add it to a new sheet. We'll do that. And then notice on over here, we have our data. I'm going to close Copilot. You'll notice that it didn't give me 100 rows of data. So sometimes what I'm finding is it can or it can't. And I haven't figured out why this is quite yet, that sometimes it will give me 100 rows of data. Sometimes it'll give me 50 rows of data. So I think it really just depends on where it is getting the information or how it is coming up with that on what it's going to do for you. But we do have a good little bit of a sampling here to get us started. If I flip back over here to sheet 1, you'll see another example of the same thing that I asked for or something similar that I asked for. And you'll notice how many rows of data I have in this one. I asked it for 100 and it gave me 52. It's still a pretty good sampling though, and this is a great place for us to be able to start. And now if we go on over to Copilot, we can continue our chat. Notice that it picks up on where we left off in this chat. So think of when you are asking about something, you're likely working on something larger than just that one question. So as you continue to ask questions, you can keep them in the same chat with Copilot. There is a way for us to go in and be able to delete those chats with Copilot if we want to clear them up. And in some cases, depending on where you're working with Copilot, there's an option for you to start a new chat if you're switching the topic or what it is that you're looking for. So let's say for this one, you'll notice we have some suggested prompts here that you can work with. So we might say, show a suggestion for a formula column. It's going to get familiar with the content. It's looking all around this workbook. We can see here that we've got list prices and order quantities. You can probably guess on what it's going to suggest as a column for us to put here in H. Now, if we go back up and take a look at it, tells us the range that it analyzed. It found one column for us to review and insert in column H, and that's the total price. Here's the syntax for it. Here's a preview of what it's going to look like with the real data, and an option for us to insert that column. While I was just hovering my mouse over that insert column, you may have noticed over here, it was showing me a live preview in H. So before you even click that button, it is showing you what it's going to look like as if you were setting it up within the column, which I think is great. We can even ask it to suggest conditional formatting, or if we want to be specific with this and say, all right, let's look through here, and for anything that has an order quantity of 10 or higher, let's have it show some sort of formatting. So let's say for this one, we're going to say, apply green fill cell background to order quantities the value of 10 or higher. We'll go with that. The way that you phrase this, you don't have to have it exactly the way that Excel would phrase things, or the names of the features that Excel has within its application. It's pretty good. And I like to consider this to be conversational. The way you or I might ask something, I'm going to know if you're using a different word or you're describing something in a different way than I might describe it, still what I need to do with it. So it's pretty good about understanding that too. So even if I just said apply green color to order quantities with a value of 10 or higher, it's probably going to be able to do it for me. So we're going to send that through to Copilot. We're going to go back up here and take a look at what we have here. So here's the one formatting rule that it has suggested for us to review. Shows us the fill color of green. We didn't specify the font color. It's automatically making that black unless we were to specify it something else. And then it gives us the opportunity to apply that. We have a notification that it's doing the work for us. And now you can see how it has updated everything within the worksheet for us so far. So those are some of the things that can kind of help you get started with Copilot, in the ways that it can help you with setting up some content, some fictitious content, if you want something to be able to try some things out with, or even as you're just exploring Copilot and getting familiar with it on what it can do, you can create some content to do that as well. And then starting to apply formatting, setting up your formulas, and then you could do things like this. So now we've got this data set. Maybe you just inherited this workbook and you have some questions about the data. What are some of the trends? What are some of the outliers? All of those types of things that you might ask about the data. We can ask those types of things. And we don't have to use the suggested prompts that are here at the top. We can write our own prompts, or we can go down and we can explore more prompts in the view prompts, which we'll do here in just a couple of minutes. But let's just say that we want to say, you know, what trends should I consider? We can even just say, what are the trends? Or what are the trends that have to do with product B? What are the trends that have to do with the country Portugal? All of these different ways that you could phrase this. You'll notice that it's not able to find the trends for me. And it's likely because I wasn't specific enough but you'll notice it couldn't find any insights, but here are some things that I might do to do further analysis with that. We could ask, what are the outliers? What are the order quantity outliers? And even if you have some typos, like I didn't have the word the in there, it's still pretty good at understanding what you're saying. If you misspell something, it still does a pretty good job at understanding that as well. All right, so if we take a look, if we come on back up here and take a look at our response, we can see that salesperson Jim Brown has an order quantity 50 accounts for the majority of the total price. Looks like Jim Brown is doing a great job of selling stuff. And then if we want to, we can take that and add it to a new sheet. So now we have a pivot table and pivot chart that's been added to a new sheet based on that simple question that we asked of Copilot. It lets you know to continue doing your analyzing. You can go back to the data. You can also undo this if this is something that you don't want to include within your workbook. So we'll pop back over here to sheet 2, or sheet 1 actually is where we were working here with this one. Just as we were setting things up, we can have it undo things. So if you have conditional formatting in all of these columns for many different things, think of the time saver that Copilot can be for you to having to go up to your home ribbon, on over to where your conditional formatting is, into manage rules, to then go ahead and delete any of those rules that you have set up. Now at the moment, I only have one set up on this sheet, which is over here. But if we had several and you need to either make changes to those or delete those, that can take a lot of time. And so for those of you that are more of the experts in Excel, you might be thinking, well, why would I take the time to ask Copilot how to do something when I know the keyboard shortcut for that? Or I know where to go in the ribbon to find exactly what that is that I need to do. So think of how, even for those of you that are very knowledgeable and very efficient in the way that you're working in these applications, if you can structure it in a couple of sentences, everything that you want it to do, the time that it would save you to go in here and say, remove all conditional formatting, or modify this conditional formatting to be this color, modify this conditional formatting rule to be these icons, any of those kinds of things you can do. You can do that in one statement and have it do all of the same things for you. So I could say something like remove conditional formatting for this worksheet, sheet, whatever you want to call it. And it will go through and do that for me and tell me what it removed. And in a lot of these, you'll notice as well that it's not actually performing the work right away. It is a suggestion. It wants you to review it for accuracy and to make sure that that is exactly what you were asking it to do. And then if you're okay with it, then you can apply that. So if we go down here, we can say apply, and we're applying the changes to this worksheet. So Copilot is to be that assistant on the side to help you with creating, analyzing, formatting, getting it ready for publication, whatever you're trying to do, creating those visualizations from the data, all of those things. But it's really going to try to understand what you're asking for, then say, okay, this is what I think you want. Is this what you want? Yes. Okay, go ahead and apply it. And you can apply it. Definitely always review what Copilot is creating for you in Excel or in any other application to make sure that it's accurate, especially if you're creating content in a Word document or you're creating something in a PowerPoint presentation, any of those areas. I do see that we had some questions coming in, and I want to make sure that we get those answered as well. And I think that some of these were back when I was introducing Copilot in Microsoft 365. So using Copilot with PowerPoint gives you just the script, but not the slides. So that question, it depends on where you are asking it to create the content from. If you're doing that directly in PowerPoint, it will create slides for you. It will create text and images based on a topic if you're asking it to build a presentation based on a description of a topic. If you are asking it to build it from a Word document or a PDF, whatever the file types that are supported to create a presentation from, it will bring in content from that file and put content on the slides, so text, and it will include additional text from that file that it's pulling it from in the speaker notes as far as supporting text. So it doesn't put everything in the slides. And then it will add some images that correlate to the text, but not necessarily the images from the document itself. If you're working in Copilot for work, and I'll show you that here a little bit later in the session today, that is where I think it is building the script from that I think you're asking that question from. So yes, if you're asking it to build a presentation or build slides based on this and you have a description in the prompt, it will give you the script for it or the layout, the outline for it, but not necessarily the PowerPoint presentation file itself. I hope that answered your question. Let me know if it was something a little different. Yeah, so I see a question here about how does it deal with misspellings and is it case sensitive? So I think I touched on this one and I'm wondering if you happen to ask it as I was talking about that or as you saw my typo on the screen. It's pretty good with misspellings unless they're really off. That's what I would say for that one. Case sensitive, I do find, and I haven't tested it lately to see if it makes a difference, but when Copilot was really young, I was finding that it was helpful to use the title casing for your headings here. So if you're specifying in your prompt a name of a column, instead of me saying column F, if I were to say list prices, and I don't even have to put the word column in there, by using that title casing, I was finding that it was giving me better results, or using single quotes around the title of the column. I was finding that that was giving me really good results for it to understand that I was referencing the headings for the table or for the data range that I'm working with on that.
Does it
and
have
I see
to
no
be
problems. Yeah, go ahead, Israel.
Be a smart table?
Sorry, does it have to be a table?
Yeah, smart table, I mean.
A smart table?
Yes, you have changed this data into a table. You did insert table.
Yes, it does not have to be in a table. When
No.
Copilot first came out, it did have to be in a table in order for it to work with it. Now it can just be a range. So yeah, you can see that I do have a table here, and my table design ribbon is also a good indicator that this is a table. If I convert this to a range, Copilot can still interact with it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. Perfect. All right, awesome. And I saw another comment here about never heard about Luke. Yeah, Israel, that's definitely, if we have a couple minutes at the end, I can kind of help you explore it a little bit and learn a little bit more about it as well. All right. So what questions do you have for me so far about working with Copilot in Microsoft Excel? Any other questions?
It looks like it's straightforward. You ask very specific questions and you get correct answers, because in my experience, sometimes you get wrong answers, but they don't see how come he can get you wrong answers with these questions.
Right. And I would say that if your question is not as detailed, then it may think you're asking about something else and provide a wrong answer, or not provide an answer at all when the answer in fact is there. So I like to refer to this as the 5 W's. If you've ever heard of this, this is like the journalist questions, or the 5 W's is what it's also referred to. So you want to be as specific as you can of including the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why. That's going to really help you write the best prompt that you can. If you're doing analysis, especially, if I'm comparing 2 different products for a region and a salesperson, I want to make sure that I'm including all of that information in the prompt to get the right answer. Or if I'm asking it to create a pivot table for a specific company for these 2 products in this date range, I need to include all of that in my prompt. So a lot of that in Excel, if you think about what you have to do, if we were going to go ahead and create a pivot table, when we go to insert and pivot table, it's going to ask us to do all of that stuff in here, right? Like once we say where we want to create it, we've got to tell it which things we want to include after we create it. But in the prompt, we can do all of that at once by just describing what it is that we want to do. So time saver from an efficiency perspective. And yeah, you should get the results on the first try, hopefully, if you are as detailed as you can be with what you're wanting it to create for you. I will share with you, Copilot is newer in Excel than the other apps as far as the number of things that you can ask Copilot to do for you. So when we think of all the features that we have up here on the ribbons, it's still getting there. They've made a lot of great progress just in the last year as far as functionality of Copilot here in Microsoft Excel to where it was a year ago. There's a lot more I still think that they need to bring in. But then again, if you think about this app, Israel and I were talking about this before the session. This application is the most robust application, in my opinion, in the traditional Office suite. When we think about Microsoft 365, and now we've got Power BI, we could argue that one all we want, but this one has so much stuff that you can do in it. It is going to take a little longer, I think, for them to build in even more of those advanced capabilities or some of those functions and formulas and other things that you're doing in Excel that you might not be able to ask it to do today. But hopefully here in the near future, you will be able to ask it to do that. One of the things I want to go ahead, Israel.
Given that Excel is endless, I assume
Yes.
Copilot for Excel will be also endless.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That sounds like a great quote that we need to have on a mug or a t-shirt or something somewhere, right? Yeah.
Good idea.
Yep. So let me show you something else here. We've been working in Excel on the web here, and I want to take us over to the Microsoft 365 homepage. And on this homepage, this is apparently getting renamed. I think it has something to do with Copilot. So if you're following along with me in your application, you might have a banner here at the top about that. But on the left, you'll notice that we have Copilot over here. And so this kind of goes back to the question we had earlier about when I create a presentation with Copilot, does it create a script or does it create the slides? So this was the place that I was referring to for that. And if you have Copilot in your Microsoft 365 subscription, you should be able to get to Copilot from here. You'll notice there's a toggle switch at the top. So the website of this is for you to be able to ask questions through a search engine online, and Copilot will come back and answer those for you. When you have it set to work, this is the side that works with your tenants' organizational information. So your Microsoft 365 tenant, everything that you have access to, think of your files and your communications. This is where you can ask Copilot to work on those for you. And in Copilot, wherever you are working with Copilot, there are usually going to be a place here for you to view additional prompts. And there's two places I always recommend for you to get more familiar with the capabilities of what Copilot can assist you with. Take a look at the suggested prompts. So here, this is giving you some good ideas of how you might find Copilot useful here for you. And if you're wanting Copilot to help you with summarizing all sorts of things that have to do with company A, we'll use this as an example, this would be the place that you would want to prompt Copilot for that, because it's able to look through all of your communications, your Teams chats, your channel posts. It's able to look at your Outlook emails and all the files that have to do with company A and be able to pull that back and summarize all of the information. Or if there's a specific thing you're asking about with that company A, this would be the place for you to do that, because it's able to, on your behalf, working with Microsoft Graph, go out and through all of those services, get all of that information and then take whatever action you're telling it to take with that and do the work for you. What we're going to use it for here, and if we go into view prompts, we can get some additional insight into the different prompts that you can write. You'll notice that we can have it help us with catching up. So you're coming back from that great vacation. You've been out of the office for a couple of weeks. These are some great ones that might be useful to you. If we want it to help us create something, it'll give us some ideas of some prompts that it can help us create. But in this case, we're going to ask it to summarize or give us some key highlights for two different Excel workbooks that we have. So let's structure it like this. Summarize the, and after the, we're going to use a /. And in a lot of your applications, this / will work. You'll notice it brings up a list of people you've communicated with recently, some of the different files you've been working on. We're going to go over 2 files. And notice that it has some of the recent files here as well. If you don't see the file that you want, you can just start typing the name of the file and it should refine this list to show that. We're going to have it summarize this sales worksheet, and we're going to do and /, and then we're going to go find that other sales worksheet. And we'll say include key points and any outliers. And we'll send it. So here's our prompt. And notice how quickly Copilot was able to do the analysis of those two different workbooks and pull back that information for us. So here's the summary of 2022 and 2023. And then that second request, key points and outliers. Here's the key points and the outliers. The nice thing about this is that if you need to dig in or you need to go and look at something for this, it's showing you where it's sourcing that information from. And it also gives you a way to be able to ask more questions about this. So list the key points. Notice what it does down here. Give me a bulleted list of key points from this file. I send it. And now we're iterating on the same chat conversation here with Copilot, getting more information about these files. Because chances are, if you have one question or a colleague of yours has one question about this file, you get that information, you review it, then you have another question and another question. So this is just a great way for you to be able to really do some deep analysis on multiple Excel workbooks, if you will, from here. What I would like to see is to be able to have that capability when we're working in Excel here. So if I have this file open, when I go to Copilot, have a way here to be able to ask it to summarize with and then use the / because the / is not bringing up that menu here in this app at the moment. It does work in some of your other applications. So if you're working in Microsoft Word, I believe in PowerPoint as well, you can use that / to kind of reference other documentation or people or files or whatever it might be in that prompt. All right.
Need to ask,
Go ahead.
to ask Copilot if there is a relation between your salary and using AI. If yes, then it's worthwhile. If not, why bother?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I see the questions coming in here. What's the advantage of using Copilot over using GPT chat? That's a great question. You know, I've dabbled in Chat GPT, if that's what you're asking about there. And I haven't really compared them to be able to tell you that. Well, one differentiator that I would say, if you're thinking of it from the perspective of working with Copilot out here, is Copilot for web, anything that you're doing or asking here, you know, that's on the web. This is within your organizational content, all of your files and communications and all the people that you work with to kind of find out, like, who knows about this topic? Who knows about this event that we're working on? It can surface that information to say, you know, Joe and Sally and Rick know about that topic. And then you can reach out to that person, where ChatGPT wouldn't be able to do that, to my knowledge, with your organizational data. So that would be, I think, the key differentiator for me. But please, anyone that has more knowledge on that, feel free to chime in.
There's also a question about security. If you ask him, okay, want the list of all the big Excel files in our OneDrive or SharePoint.
Mm-hmm.
What are the security that he can access many folders?
Yes. So security is definitely a great thing to talk about in relationship to Copilot. And if you think about it, when you send a prompt through, it goes through a pre-grounding and a post-grounding. What it's doing at first is, you know, it is looking to see what do you have access to through Microsoft Graph. And it's going and it's pulling all that information. But while it's going through that process, it is going through many different checks, different security checks for that as well. So it's only going to access information that you have permission to. So if I'm asking for a file and that is your file in your OneDrive document library and you have not shared it with me, Copilot can't access that. And it can't pull back any information for me since it cannot access that. So it's only the things that you have been given permissions to. When we think about a SharePoint site, when we think about the files in the document library that are associated with that SharePoint site, or since we know that Teams, behind the scenes, it's a SharePoint site that it's working with, same thing there for permissions. And then, of course, all of your Outlook communications, and then any of the files that are in OneDrive and a OneDrive document library. It's all handled based on what you have permissions to. That is how Copilot is working. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
These are great questions. Yeah, and these are questions that a lot of folks are asking as well. Does it replace? I see we've got a couple questions coming here. What if I want to get a median aggregation? Would Copilot create a power pivot automatically instead of a regular pivot table? I haven't tried that one yet. I would say try it if you have Copilot. I'll try and make a note of it and see if I can get something like that to work after today's session here. But yeah, definitely try it and see if that's available. If not, hopefully soon that will be available as well. And then the other question, does this replace Power Queries? So it's not necessarily replacing Power Queries. It's just a different way to automate similar type of work, or of what you would be doing with a Power Query would be the way that I would describe it for you. But who knows down the road if there could potentially be something else that gets developed from this. You'll notice that here in Copilot for Work over here on the right side, we have what are called agents. So these are different Copilot agents. And if you want to think about these as like chat bots, if you're familiar with that term, and you might see more of these coming up, or, maybe somewhere down the road, there might be something like that that gets built for Power Queries. So there's a lot of potential here. It's just a matter of us seeing what Microsoft is able to develop, and especially based on your feedback. So if you are on those feedback portals and suggesting those types of ideas, I think that's a great place to go and look to see if others have suggested it and upvoted it. And if not, definitely suggest it to see where that lands. Sounds like you might have some great ideas on what could be possible with it, for sure. Yeah, while we're here in Copilot for Work, and if you don't have access to Copilot, I mentioned earlier, hey, there's still a way that you can work with Copilot on the web. So if you go to Copilot, I think it's copilot.microsoft.com, you can work with the free Copilot. So everybody can go there and work with the free Copilot to ask chat questions and do research and do that kind of stuff. And I believe you can also work with Designer for free as well. It's the work part that you wouldn't have unless you have a Copilot license for your Microsoft 365 account. In the work side, there are some fun things that you can do. You can use this visual creator, which is based on Microsoft Designer. So this is Microsoft Designer and Copilot together, and you can give it a description of what you want it to create, and then it creates it for you. And I'll bring this back on my screen to show you that in my slides, that is actually what I use to create this slide graphic and to create this slide graphic. So you just give it a description of, I want a Copilot robot that is working, I want a robot that is showing how Copilot works in a Microsoft Excel workbook. And based on that description, that's how I got what you see here on the slide. So lots of fun stuff that you can do with that.
Actually, on the edge, you have also the icon of a Copilot. And I tried to tell him, okay, I want you to create an Excel table with 100 rows. And he did it. So you don't really need a license for Copilot.
True.
You just go to the edge and click on the Copilot, tell it, analyze or create data, and ask them, okay, if I'm going to upload the file, will you analyze it? He says, definitely yes.
Yep. Yes. And that's a great point. And that's a tricky one sometimes for us, Israel, when we're teaching this in companies, because we want to make sure that everyone's real clear on, don't put any of your intellectual property out here on the free one. Anything within your company that you want to make sure is secure, you don't want to be putting that in the prompt to create it based on this, if that's stuff that's confidential. If it's stuff that's confidential, you want to make sure you stay within the work confines of what you're doing, so that does not potentially be out there searchable or anything that might be findable by someone else. So definitely the free one, there's a lot of great things that you can create with it, but just making sure where you're sharing certain information or inputting that information into your prompts.
So when using Copilot on Edge and asking questions, he saves all these questions and someone else can reach it?
That part I'm not sure of. I've been hearing a lot of interesting conversations on that, as far as like, where would that be visible and could somebody else ask about that? So that's just the part where I would say I would be cautious on that and do some research of your own on how that's working to know for sure. Definitely.
I'm going to ask him about this question. Let's see what he answers.
You're asking Copilot the question?
Yes. He doesn't have to swear on a Bible right now.
Right. And I see a response in here. It looks like you were trying about the Power Queries, that Didn't direct you to Power Pivot, but it created a formula in a regular table to calculate. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking it might do. So hopefully soon we'll see a difference on that. Speaking of create, because Israel is bringing up something that I think is really interesting, and it's kind of a hidden gem. I stumbled across this when I was working with Copilot for work here. I'm like, what is this create? And when you go in here at first, you're like, oh, this is just a collection of all the templates. If you want to create a new blank workbook, a presentation, a document, or you want to explore all these other templates that they've got here for you, and they might be beyond the ones that are in the application itself. But notice this first one has to do with Copilot. And so this is another place that could be a great place for you to start when you're not sure that maybe it needs to be an Excel workbook. Maybe you want to create something that is going to be a schedule for the 2026 Israeli Excel Club meetings. And so if I were to go in here and say, give me some ideas on creating something like this, here's my prompt. And then I click generate. So notice we're starting with an idea. We're asking Copilot to come up with the idea. And then in step 2, we get to review it, make any additional edits to it, and then decide where we want to place that content. So here's a preview of the content that it created for us. Down here at the bottom is where we get to choose if we want to make it shorter or longer. So at the top here, you'll see we've got the length, shorter, medium, longer. We can make it more casual or professional of a tone. We'll make it more casual, revise it. So now we get our second draft of it. And as it's generating this, if you take a look over here on the right, it's suggesting to me that this could work out well as an Excel workbook, as a Microsoft list, or as a Word document. So we get the content the way we want it to be here first, and then we can choose which of these formats we want to output it as. So of course, if I select Excel Create, it's going to open it within the Excel for the web app, and then I can continue working on it there. What'd you get for an answer, Israel?
Yeah, he said, okay, go and read my terms of privacy.
Okay.
So it doesn't really answer.
Right. Okay. So look at how quickly we were able to come up with some suggested ideas of maybe topics for your club meetings for next year. And of course, you can go through and refine it.
So you need to add another column to get the lecturer and Denise's email.
That's right. That's all you got to do. And you're done. It's that simple. All right. Any questions that you have about Copilot for the web or the new Create feature that I was showing you?
No.
All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at Microsoft Forms and how Copilot can help you out there. So we're going to get to Forms from our homepage here. So let me go on back to our homepage. Use our app launcher. Are any of you working with Microsoft Forms today? Do you use it in your organ?
This club is using a form.
You're using it?
Microsoft.
Yeah. So do you use it for the evaluations of your club meetings, Israel, or
no, just for the invitation to get the list of things.
Perfect. Okay, so everybody is familiar with it from that perspective of seeing it. Awesome. So this is Microsoft Forms, and this is a great place for you to be able to create a form to capture feedback, to capture registration like you are for this club, to do some research, maybe to quiz people. If you have a formal class that you have going on, you can create quizzes in this. Teachers are using this a lot in their classrooms to create quizzes around topics. And there are lots of templates here to get you started. So you'll notice there are different categories of templates. You could also build your own form from scratch. If you didn't have a Copilot license, when you go into this, it would take you right into where you would type in the topic, the heading, the first question, set up your answer choices for each of the questions you type in. With Copilot, though, it brings you right to here where you can describe what you want to create. So we're going to ask it to create a form to gather feedback about our recent Copilot training project. We'll click Generate. And you can see how quickly it was able to create 5 questions, along with rating scales that they can use to fill it out, places to enter text answers, multiple choice questions. We can choose which of these we want to include or not include. So we can take one out. We can ask it to add more things to this. We'll send a refiner prompt through or another prompt through to have it build out a little bit more. Nope, doesn't look like it wants to. We'll just click keep it for now since it doesn't want to give us more than that. So this just gives you a quick idea of how you can come in here and quickly ask it for that information. What I want to show you is that Copilot pops up in more than one place in some of these apps. So if we were done setting this form up and ready to send it out to people, when we go to our collect responses, notice that Copilot is right here to help us rewrite the invitation. So Israel, if you're getting ready to send this out, you might come in here and you might be able to say, well, I want to make this a little more casual, or I want to add in a little more information. The rewrite with Copilot can take what you have written here and give you a different version of that. And you can regenerate as many versions as you want. And this is similar on the other apps too. So if you're having it rewrite an email or having it rewrite a Teams chat or a team channel post, this regenerate and the way that you can work with rewrite is very similar in those apps as well. And then you can go through and find the one that you like and use that one to start the process of sending this out. And we can choose where we want to send it and then send that out. When we get to, go ahead.
I'm going to do it now to check although I don't have a license for the Copilot, I'm going to use the Edge and tell him, okay, this is the page. Can you rewrite the page? And the good thing about the Copilot is working in Hebrew.
Oh, it's not.
No, yes, it is.
It is. Oh, great. That's good. Okay, good. It's a great workaround that you are suggesting. I really like it. So how does this tie into Excel? If you've not worked in Forms before, from the main Forms page that we're going back to here, you'll notice that I have some other forms. And so one of these that I've used in one of my sessions is called my public speaking form. It's one simple question. We're going to go into this one. You'll notice that I've got the question and they can pick, is it an acquired skill or is it a given talent? They answer that one specific question. Well, when I go into my view responses, you'll notice that I have 52 responses, the average time that it takes for them to respond, and I have a way to open the results in Excel. If we look in the drop down, you can also download a copy. So this is an improvement. If you've worked in Forms, but it was years ago when you worked in Forms, the only choice you had was to download a copy. Problem with that is if you're creating reports based on that data, somebody else or 3 other people or 10 other people could have filled that form out since you downloaded it and you don't have the latest data. So this is a great improvement that they've made between Forms and Excel in recent time, to where when you click open results in Excel, it's opening it in Excel for the web. And then you're able to do the analysis directly from the web that we're on right now. You'll notice that this is something that I was using publicly in one of my talks at a conference. So it's not collecting any of their email addresses or their names in that as well, but I can see when they responded and what they responded with. So I've got all of the pertinent information that I need here. And I can do any of the analysis that I want right here from Excel, including getting help from Copilot with doing that analysis for me. So this is an excellent update that they've made to where you're seeing the latest real-time data and being able to do that analysis in the web version of Excel instead of having to download a local copy that does not sync with the latest data that's coming in. All right, we've got a request that came in here too. So I know I was going to touch on Power Automate. How much time do we still have, Israel, for me to?
Half an hour.
Half an hour, perfect. Okay, so I will definitely get to PowerPoint and show you an example of that. Let's touch on Power Automate for just a moment and show you Copilot in action there. So we're going to go to our app launcher. and we are looking for Power Automate. If Power Automate is included with your licensing for Microsoft 365, you'll see it in the app launcher listed like I had it there. When we go to Power Automate out here, notice because I have Copilot, instead of it just showing me what it would usually show you would be more like the templates that you see here if you did not have a Copilot license. But since I do have a Copilot license, when I go to the home area, what I love about this is I think it's really simplified anything that you need to automate in the work that you're doing every day. And so if you think about your Excel workbooks, you could automate when something comes into a Microsoft form. So the form I was just showing you. So when someone responds to a Microsoft form, you could have it take that row of information that's in that associated Excel workbook behind the scenes of the form and have it place it into a planner plan. So in Microsoft Planner, you have a shared plan. That's where the tasks are going for the work that needs to be done. If that row of data that's coming into that form is a help desk ticket or something else, and there needs to be some work or an action taken upon that, you could have that put into a bucket as a task in a plan, and you could have it notify you or notify someone else that there's a new task there that they need to take action on. That's one example. You'll notice some other examples that they have here that maybe don't relate necessarily to Excel workbooks only, but it does have to do with the files that you have in OneDrive. You could set one up here so that every month it copies all of your files to somewhere else as a backup, or that copies all the rows of an Excel file to another Excel file with the click of a button, that being the trigger for this flow to work. So these are a few of the samples of what you can create. We have one that we're going to create, and I do have a description of it here that I'm going to copy and paste in here for you to see. So we're going to ask it to create a planner task from a Microsoft form response and then post a message to Teams. And I'll just walk you through the process of how you set this up in case you're not familiar with Power Automate. This app is what used to be called Flow, if you've heard of it before, called Flow, and they've renamed it to Power Automate. The process that we're setting up, though, that's going to automate the actions that we want it to do is called a flow. There's different types of flow. This is the flow that we're setting up that is going to be based on a trigger. So when a new response comes into that form, the action that we want it to take is to get the details of that, create a task in that planner plan, and then post a message about it into a team chat or a channel that we specify within this. So if this looks good to us, we'll go to the next step. The next step is it's showing the accounts that it will be using in order for this to happen. So this is the account that I'm logged in as, and these are the 3 apps that it's going to interact with on my behalf with that account in order for that to happen. We get the response from forms. Okay, now we take that information and we're going to place it into a specific plan. And we're going to notify someone or a group of people in a private chat in Teams or in a specific team channel as a post. You have to log into these accounts. If they're not logged in, the green check marks let you know it's all good. We create the flow. And then the next step is we have to create those specifications. You'll notice that we have invalid parameters here, but when I click on each of these, I need to, it tells you right here what's needed, the form ID. So which form is it that I want to use for this? So maybe it's going to be this Copilot training project feedback, and then I can collapse this back down. We move on to the next one. Okay, what's the form? It happens to be this, and this is the response ID that it's going to look for. That's the row of information from the Excel workbook that's behind the form. Now we move on down. And right now we have gone through the first 2 steps. So now we're on the create task step. Okay. So this is where we have to specify, okay, it's our group ID, it's the plan ID, it's going to be the body and this. Okay, this is the other information we need. Now for this one, we're going to click outside of it for now, and then we're going to go to our create task. That's the one we were in before. So let's get out of that one for now. And then post the message in the chat. We have to specify the team and the channel where we want this to go. So you'll notice these are all of the teams that I have set up. I'm going to pick this one. And then for my channel, once I pick my team, it's going to show me all of the channels that are available. I'm going to pick this one. And notice the message that it's going to post. A new task has been created from a message form response, and then it's going to input what is in the body of that form that was submitted by that person. So the details of whatever it is that you're collecting is what's going to dynamically appear in this part of it. So these are the essential steps in order for you to go through and set this up. You have to go into each of these steps and specify where you want the information to come from, where you want the information to be posted to, and then if there's a notification about that too, where do you want that to be posted to? Those essentially are the steps. And then once you're done with that, you can manually test this on your own. You can also go through and click on your flow checker to see if there's things that are missing. It will point out if it finds any errors. Commonly, the errors are going to be that you didn't fill out one of these steps with the criteria that was needed in order for this to work for you. So that's a good thing for you to try first. And then once you save this, then this test becomes active where you can go and fill out that form and then see in the test here if it's working properly. And then of course, go and check if it was posted within that plan and if that communication after it was posted within the team channel conversation. So the process that we've been going through here involved those 3 apps. One of the apps that we didn't, and I'm gonna go ahead and just exit out of this for now. I know I didn't save it, but one of the things that we didn't talk about is the Planner app, and I'll just touch on it for a moment. If you're not familiar with this app that was involved within that particular flow that we created in Power Automate, this is a place for you to work on tasks as a group. And this is something that ties in very nicely to Teams if you're working in a team within the Microsoft Teams app. So this is a place where you can have buckets. And I'll show you what a plan looks like here, just a sample. In this plan, we have a backlog bucket. So these are all the tasks that have been put on the backlog, the things that are coming up next, the things that are in progress. There's different ways that you can structure these. See if we've got another example to show you. So if we go here to commercial construction, and I'm going to change the view of this to a board, you'll see that we can have different categories of tasks. So general conditions, and then here's the tasks. Long lead procurement, and then here's the tasks. You can assign it to one person or multiple people. A task can belong to more than one person. Give it a due date, include a bullet list of the things that they have to check off to complete that task. You can attach a file to a task. And the way that this is managed is if I had a team called commercial construction, there would be a plan that I can set up in that team of the same name. And everyone that has permissions to that team also has permissions to this plan. So we have shared ownership of it to manage all of the work that's happening in here. So the flow that we just set up was to automate the work of a request comes in for a change to this construction project, it could be, and we want that change request information to be placed on this plan and to be communicated out to the commercial construction team in the change channel. That could be an example or a scenario of how something like this could work really well for you. So just so you know, that's something else that kind of ties into Excel. This plan can be exported to Excel. So you can export this to Excel and do some analyses of all of the buckets and tasks that you're managing within that also. So a lot of things on the back end really tie into Excel as well. Any questions that you have about Power Automate and creating your flows with Copilot there?
It was like a little bit like a Zapier or Make. But...
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I've heard that about Zapier before. I've not really had a chance to play with it, but yeah, there's a lot of great things. And it does have a lot of third-party applications that you can tie into Power Automate too. So if you go and look at the templates, you'll notice like remote work, I think, is one where I saw a lot of, so there's all sorts of pre-built templates you can work with, but there's There are ones I think that have to do with Twitter and well, X and, all of those different third-party tools that you might be working with, depending on if it's social media or construction or human resources or whatever it might be. For sure. All right. Well, if there's no questions about Microsoft Planner or Power Automate here, we'll flip over and show you the PowerPoint example I think that you were looking for. The example that you were asking about, was that in relation to what I was mentioning as far as if you're building something from a Word document or if you're building something about a particular topic? We'll go to PowerPoint while we're getting an answer to that. Feel free to share in the chat if there was something specific that you were interested in relation to Copilot and PowerPoint.
Shlomo, it's your turn.
Nothing specific. Okay. Well, I'll show you what I think you'll like, and then you can ask me questions based on that, if that sounds good. So notice when I open up PowerPoint, and this is in either the web app or the desktop app, you're going to get a similar experience. I'm just opening a blank presentation. And notice that Copilot has a drop down here where it's saying I can create a presentation about a specific topic. I can create a presentation from a file, or I can ask Copilot questions about this presentation that I have open. So let's start with a topic. Does anybody want to give me a topic on what you want it to build something about? Let's make this a little more interactive. Any ideas?
Should we use Copilot at work?
What's that?
Should we use Copilot at work?
If we should use Copilot at work. Let's see what it does. Look at this. I'm seeing a lot of things coming up to privacy and security concerns, things that we've talked about in this session. So it's showing us an outline. You'll notice that with each of these, there's a plus sign here where I can add a topic about. So if I want to add something in here, I can do that as well. We'll say Copilot and Edge. So we'll expand on this one a little bit more. Think of this as the outline or the table of contents for your presentation. This is what we're looking at. If there's one that you don't want, you can delete that section or that topic from here before you generate the slides. So let's go ahead and generate the slides. We have a preview here of the layout here that it's going to show us once the slides are created. And this is more of a slide sorter view if you're familiar with PowerPoint. It's almost like a storyboard type of a view, the flow of the presentation. It's almost done.
Going to add also images?
It includes images too, yes. So here's what we have. And we'll flip over to a different view. So it included, look at how many slides. Wow. How much time would it take you to create this manually if you needed to create all of this content? And that depends on how familiar you are with PowerPoint, right? If you work in Excel a lot.
How familiar you are with the subject.
Exactly, exactly. The subject and PowerPoint. We're going to flip over to this view because right now we're in slide sorter view. But if we flip back to the view that you're more familiar with, let me see if it's going to, there we go. I'm going to press escape. Actually, editing view is what I want. I was going into the slideshow view. There we go. This is what we want. So here we are. And what I want to point out to you is if we expand the notes area here and we go to a different slide, on some instances, it may include additional topics or information, but it's not on this topic that we used. But it did a pretty good job. If we look through each of these, as far as the images, the content, it even included sections depending on the topic that was part of that outline. Some of them might have some weird images that it includes too. Introduction to Copilot and Edge. I don't know why it included that photo to go along with that, but That's where you need to spot check the work and make sure that everything is accurate or to your liking and make any updates that you need. And I see here, I would improve the images in the presentation. Yes, yeah. In some of these, I think I would probably go through and replace them and potentially work with Designer if you have Designer. Now we're in the web app here, so we don't have it, but in the desktop app, you could probably use Designer to make some improvements to that as well. That is one thing that I'm hoping that we'll get more of, is more options for the images and requesting what kind of images we want to include and the color theming and those types of things also. Yeah.
Interesting to check is how many students are using these features.
How many students?
Students, when they have to submit a presentation, they're using these capabilities.
I bet you they are.
Yeah.
If that saves them the time, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you liked that. I can show you one more example if you want to see what it does from a Word document. Let's go ahead and do a new blank presentation. And what we're doing right now, if you have company templates, company branded templates that you use, you can open a new presentation based on that company branded template. And then you can work with Copilot to do what we're doing now. Ask it to build something based on a topic, or ask it to bring in content from another file that you have. So for this one, we'll select create a presentation from file. And you'll notice over here, it brings us to the Copilot pane, similar to the one we were working in Excel. And it's got the prompt already written out for us, create a presentation from. And remember that / that we used in Copilot for Work when we were having it summarize those 2 different Excel workbooks? Same thing here. So we do the / we go to files, we can pick whatever it is that we want to use as our Word document to build this from. So I'm going to go with this engaging new hires remotely during the onboarding process. This is a Word document that I created by asking Copilot to build a Word document on this content. So now we're taking that content and we're converting it into a presentation. So we'll send it. It shows us an outline here in the pane. This bulleted list is an outline of the flow of the content that it's going to build here in the presentation. We have a progress bar for the slides that are being generated, a notification that it's adding speaker notes to the slides. And here it is. So I'm going to close the Copilot pane for now. It didn't add images to all the slides. So of course you have an empty canvas here to go in and kind of make it what you want it to be. It kept a pretty good approach on the structure, but it didn't put all the content for importance of onboarding on this slide because that would be too much reading. But what it does is in the notes, it'll include additional supplemental information or maybe some of the facts and figures that go along as supporting documentation for the content that is on the slide. So I think that this is a great resource if you're going to be the person that's speaking, that you have that in the speaker notes that you can refer to, especially when you have it in that slideshow type of a mode. So I hope that helps you to understand that what you can do with Copilot in your presentations. Of course, a lot of the things that we were trying out with Copilot in Excel, you can do the same thing here too. So if you have questions about the content from this Copilot pane, you can help understand something that's in the content there. You can ask it to summarize this presentation. You can ask it to highlight key points about this topic in this presentation. So there's a lot of things that Copilot can help you with beyond crafting a presentation. We could even ask it here to build another slide based on a topic, and it would insert a slide after slide 5, since that's the slide that I'm on. It would insert a new slide there for you also. Any questions that you have for me in regards to PowerPoint and Copilot that I can answer?
Silence.
Okay. So I'll leave you with a few resources, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. So I've got a few here for you too, and I can send this list to you too, Israel, if you want to place it somewhere that they can get all of the links. But
okay, yes, I can do it.
Yeah, perfect. The prompt gallery is a great place for you to go to, copilot.cloud.microsoft/prompts. This is an excellent resource of all sorts of prompts that you can use. And you'll notice that it's spanning all of the different Microsoft 365 apps. And what's nice about this is you can go to a specific app and then go through a category of the prompts here. You can go down and dig in deeper and try these different prompts out. So this is a great resource for you. There's also the Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption website. There's a lot of great resources on here as well that can help you if you're launching Copilot within your organization, or you're wanting to learn, you and your team are wanting to learn a bit more about this. There's a lot of great tools in here that can help you with that as well. There's a scenario library, and this is an excellent resource based on if you are working in a specific industry or a specific job role. This will take you through different scenarios that can help you with this. And this is not looking like what I wanted it to be. So, but there's some great ones in there. So if you're like in manufacturing, or if you need a scenario for human resources, those types of things, excellent resource that can help you with that. And my toolbar for Zoom keeps getting in my way. So let me see if I can get these to come up better. There we go. The latest updates for Copilot. This is another great resource if you're wanting to hear about the new features, the most popular prompts, ways that you can work with it in Excel and other apps as well. So lots of great resources here for you. And I'll send those to Israel and he can share those out with you as well. If you are on LinkedIn Learning, I've got some courses here that can help you expand your knowledge on LinkedIn, or excuse me, on Copilot and many of the different apps. This is one about Copilot quick tips across all of the different Microsoft 365 apps. I have another one that has to do with Copilot increasing your productivity in Teams that can be an excellent resource for you also. So happy to send those to you, and happy to answer any questions that I can for you about this. Even after today's class, feel free to reach out to me.
That's great. Thank you.